Welcome to Type C Tech Reviews. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Mobiuz EX270QM. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same monitor, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But let's jump into it. All right, right away, this is a 27-inch panel with a 2560 by 1440p resolution. Just a 1440p resolution. Now, this resolution to screen size brings the PPI, or pixels per inch, essentially how crisp and clear the image is actually going to appear to your eye. This brings it to around 109. This means images, games, movies will all appear crisp and clear. Very small text may have some visible pixelation, but this does depend on your viewing distance, but it's not going to be as perfect as a 27-inch 4K PPI would be, obviously. But for the most part, text clarity should not be an issue at all. As far as panel type, this is an IPS panel. Now, ports here are great. This adds HDMI 2.1, which still a lot of 240Hz monitors, around that 240, 280Hz monitors, don't have HDMI 2.1 because they're older. This one being a newer monitor, it does have HDMI 2.1, so it does support all of the consoles with variable refresh rate. Okay, so this has one DisplayPort 1.4, two HDMI 2.1s, one USB Type-B upstream, then two USB Type-A downstreams. And then lastly, it has a 3.5mm audio out. Now again, like I said, having those HDMI 2.1s may or may not be a game changer for some of you. If you're going between console and then going between PC gaming, that might be a must for you. Now for the refresh rate, this hits 240 Hz, does not have a factory overclock, and this does have FreeSync Premium Pro, which is sweet because that allows HDR to be on with variable refresh rate, which is absolutely awesome. That's what I really enjoyed gaming on this panel with, is HDR on. And obviously this also works well with NVIDIA cards. That's what I majority use. Now, brightness here has a rating of 400 nits in SDR, which is good. But after testing, this hit around 445 nits in SDR. That's full screen brightness there, so really good brightness there. As far as brightness in HDR, after testing, this bumps it up to around 620 nits of brightness, full screen again. That's not just highlights, that's full screen brightness after testing, so really, really good there. It's a vibrant panel due to the brightness and reflections, things like that, not really an issue. However, I will say HDR is what I prefer this monitor in most of the time, just because you have that wider color gamut, which we'll get to, as well as the nice high brightness. You guys know I love really bright monitors. Now, colors here are great, covering 98% of the DCI-P3 color space, which is a wider color coverage than, well, probably the most similar monitor to this monitor, which would be the Alienware AW2723DF. So this has a slightly wider color gamut than that monitor. This can also output 10 bits of color, which we do expect. And this monitor is overall very good for someone who wants to do that fast-paced, high refresh rate gaming with 240 Hz and then switch to doing something like professional color work. Like, yeah, you can legitimately do it on this monitor, which is awesome. Contrast ratio here is typical for IPS panels at 1000:1. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the biggest potential issue with this monitor, which is backlight bleed. I do have backlight bleed on my panel. There is quite a bit on the bottom right corner, and then some in the top right corner, and then a little bit sprinkled all around. Now, if it was just the other little bits sprinkled all around, it's not too big of a deal. But in the bottom right, it was a lot. After seeing this, I was looking it up everywhere. There's a lot of issues with backlight bleed with this panel. Now, that's a quality control issue. So that's something that hopefully BenQ is currently fixing and may already be fixed. I don't know. However, if you do really want to buy this monitor, you should keep an open mind and be under the impression that if you buy this monitor, take it out of the box, check it for backlight bleed. If it has it, you gotta be ready to ask them for a replacement so that you can get a new panel. But besides that, that's really the only issue. There's no real other big issues with this monitor at all. I mean, these IPS panels are pretty much rock solid at this point, but the backlight bleed, yeah, that's one thing that you're gonna wanna check for. Now for response time and ghosting. The ghosting here is really, really good. When I'm comparing it to the Alienware AW2723DF, it is slightly better than that monitor. That monitor was really, really good. So this is exceptional ghosting at this point, but it's slightly, and I do mean slightly better than the Alienware here. But basically, you're not gonna have any problems with ghosting. The motion clarity is very, very good here. And I would say it is better than the Alienware, not just in the ghosting, but the overall visual clarity. There's so many things going into it that's not just ghosting. This one, really good there. Fast-paced gaming felt amazing. Very clear image when doing fast whips. FPS style gaming. So all good things here. Now the menu system and controls is classic BenQ, which is not really the best thing. As for the controls, they have a remote, which honestly feels great. I've talked about this before. It's great for volume controls and quicker controls. You can use the remote for the whole menu system, which is great. It feels very high quality. Now there is a power button that's dedicated, but it's right next to the menu system button. So if you are using the onboard controls for the menu system, it's very easy to accidentally hit the power button. I've talked about that before, not the best placement there. But the menu system itself, which a remote cannot fix, is that it's very confusing. They use certain names for things that are not industry standards, like AMA is your response time settings, but who would know that unless you're really big into monitors? Then you have things like most people are gonna go in there and wanna turn their FreeSync Premium Pro on. Well, you can't. That has to be done through your PC itself. It has to be done through like whatever it is, NVIDIA control panel or whatever it is. That has to just come on automatically, which is fine, but a lot of people will be left confused as heck with this menu system. There's also a lot of like brightness should be quick to get to, and it's not quick. Very confusing menu system. I've talked about this before, but BenQ really needs to do a total revamp of their menu system because it's honestly a little bit embarrassing at this point. But moving on to Vesa compatibility is great here, having 100mm by 100mm Vesa mounts. I actually did end up mounting this during the testing process, which took a little bit longer than expected, but well, it's given me a lot of experience with this monitor, so mounting this, no problem at all, as you would expect. All right, now before we get to stand and build quality, those internal speakers, yes, they are really, really good. This is a 2.1 system. When you see it, it's not just marketing. There's an actual 5-watt subwoofer that is rear facing, and yeah, it actually has bass. I've talked about this before on different BenQ monitors that do have this 2.1 system. There's 2 tweeters that are front facing. It sounds like the best of any monitor speakers you're going to get. However, it's not like a replacement for a dedicated 2.1 system, right? It's not gonna have that output. You're not gonna have bass rumbling everything, but it's still gonna be very enjoyable to listen to music on, to play like solo games on if you're just doing a campaign. So if you mainly use your headset, but you want some speakers that actually sound good, right? They're not trash. These are definitely gonna work for you, and that's really, really cool. All right, now the stand and build quality is classic BenQ. It feels very polished, it's well put together, premium materials here. As far as adjustability, you have height, tilt, swivel, which is nice to have. No full rotation, you have a slight amount of rotation just to kind of level it on your desk. But now the most important section of the video, this is price and value. We come to an interesting point here where this is definitely on the more premium end of gaming monitors, right? You're competing with monitors from Alienware. So this is definitely a premium price tag. The Alienware 2723DF, which is pretty much the same specs here. It's got 280 Hz, not quite as wide of the color coverage, and slightly worse ghosting, but honestly that shouldn't even be considered as it's so minuscule. This thing retails for $799.99, which I said in the unboxing was like way too much money. And I'm just gonna say this right away. If it is $799.99, don't buy it. It is very overpriced. But I will say at the time of filming, this is $699.99, which is only $50 away from the Alienware. So if you do want to do basically a $50 upgrade to get slightly wider color gamut and that 2.1 speaker system, I think that's a worthy upgrade at that $699.99 price tag. I think that's a good price tag. But at the end of the day, you are looking at a time when you can get 240 Hz monitors significantly cheaper than both of those monitors. But honestly, if you are looking for these premium 240 Hz monitors from either, I would say the best, or from Alienware, and this one's great, but obviously not for that $800 price point, where they're both great at $650 and $700. Whether you want 40 Hz more and a slightly less wide color gamut, then the Alienware is great. Again, I'll have both linked below to Amazon for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. This is a really great monitor, but at $800, it is a very, very tough sale. If this dropped down to $600, I would say no brainer, do it, right? But at $800, it's a no way. So there it is. All right, this is Type C Tech Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next video.